somebody who requested a trade today. And whenever that happens, we got to discuss, does it make sense for the Giants to trade for this player? That's DK Metcalf, who I did not see coming at all in that whole scenario. So,
he's fast.
we talked about it. We expected that they'd be making some moves here in Seattle. We expected Tyler Lockett to be gone, who, by the way, the Seahawks did release today. So they're kind of doing a change of the guard this offseason here. But Ian Rappaport on Twitter X, I have to always say it that way. How many years before I can stop saying it that way to say X?
Just say X.
I just feel it's weird because, again, you don't use X to tweet. Like, I need a new verb for that then. I need a new verb if we're doing that.
Accent. Well, it's funny. Actually, I met someone that works with someone.
Oh, please tell me this is as good as the Otis Anderson story.
Just as good. That they work for X in the marketing department. I told them that instead of being called tweets because it's stupid, because he got in trouble because they still say tweeting over there and Twitter instead of saying X. I said, go with X, go all in. But instead of tweeting, say X is going to give it to you. Anytime you're talking about tweeting, X is going to give it to you.
It's just, like I said, they need to figure out a word for it because it just doesn't make any sense anymore. But anyway, Ian Rappaport on X said, Seahawks star wide receiver DK Metcalf has requested a trade from Seattle, and the team has decided to explore it, per me and Tom Pelissero. Now, me is Ian Rappaport, not me, Drew. There is more likely to be significant interest in the Seattle star, and both sides will dig into it. A big-time wide receiver who may be on the move. And big time is an interesting word to use for DK Metcalf, by the way. If anybody's ever got the chance to see him, not just on TV, but live in person, for a receiver, he is a big guy. Like, you don't at least you go,
massive.
That's a receiver. Look at him. He's big. Like, he's practically tight end size when you see him in person. He's a tall guy. I'm not gonna say he's hefty like Jay would say, I'm sure, because he likes to be mean about people's weight today. 6'4".
Sorry, just ate Chinese food before coming on. I'm bloated.
6'4", 235 pounds, guys. That's pretty big. That's like, again, that's almost tight end size at that point there. So, like, let me look at Theo Johnson, for example.
Let's say, is he bigger
6'6", 265. So he's got, about another 30 pounds he'd be there. But most receivers are usually like 210,
200,
215. Like, he's got a decent amount of weight added on him. And yeah, 200 is not great. Look at Tank Dell's 160 pounds. He's the smallest, but I'm just saying, like, he's got 75 pounds on him. I mean, that's a big freaking difference.
The last couple of years through the draft class of receivers coming out, a lot of them have been under 200 pounds.
Yeah.
This year seems like they're back to eating their beefcakes.
And DK Metcalf is actually a lot younger than you might think as well, guys. He's 27 years old. I feel like he's been in the league forever. I really do. But
that's because when he came up, and he still played with Lockett right away.
Yep.
And he came up with the Seahawks, and he was just good his first year.
Yeah.
Like, he was solid, and he just hasn't looked back.
Yeah, and last year, guys, he got hurt for a little while, but he still had a damn good season. 12 games. Again, 12 games. You got to keep that for part of this at that point, because that means he missed 5, games. 66 receptions, 992 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Again, that's 2/3 of the season. If he had been healthy, he would have had his best season by far, probably. 2020 at 1,300 yards and 83 catches. He had 1,100 yards in 23. He's not the guy that puts up 1,600 yards. Let's be clear on that. He's the guy who puts up right around 1,000 to 1,100 usually. Like, he's that guy.
He's also never been like the sole dude on a team. Like, he took over Lockett's number 1 spot. He's also what's his face that just came out of the draft 2 years ago.
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah,
who just came on big time this year.
They picked up Noah Fant. Also had
Geno Smith. So and an older version of Russell Wilson. So you can also make that claim. He's never worked with a dynamic quarterback. No offense to those two, but they're not exactly.
Yeah, but they still.
Geno Smith, you must have gotten 1,700 yards this season.
I hear you, but they've been a top 10 passing team. Yeah,
they have. Yeah.
So you can't say like they have not been in a dynamic offense.
I get it. I just have trouble with Geno Smith still. No matter how many years he's been an okay starter.
I hear you.
I hear you. I have trouble. It's Geno Smith.
And you have to wonder too. Like, I mean, does that spell Geno Smith coming over to the Giants as well? But
no.
That's besides the point. But I'm just saying is, you talk about he's not going to be your 1,500-yard guy, but he's also when every time that Metcalf has put over 1,000 yards on the table, for the season. Same with Lockett.
Yeah.
Yeah. You also have Noah Fant, and you have other receivers on a team that's consistently put up 700 yards.
Yeah.
So it's like they spread the ball around. That's what I was getting at. So like you put them in a situation where it's a team that doesn't have as good as receiving core. Can he get to 1,500 yards? It's possible.
Yeah. And did they already cut him too, Noah Fant? I feel like he got cut, or they're talking about cutting him as well. I'd have to look it up here. Let's see here.
We're just having a flash sale.
I thought I heard that. No, he's still on there, it looks like, but I mean, that's a guy who does 500-600 yards from the tight end position. So I mean, oh, here it is. Yeah, 1 day ago, Seahawks cut Noah Fant. So the Seahawks cut Noah Fant, Tyler Lockett, and they're willing to trade DK Metcalf. It's gonna be a totally different offense, guys. But the big topic here, as we're getting, let's pop reel in real quick. Is the big thing is, should the Giants look at DK Metcalf? That's the big topic here. And I gotta say, I can't tell you guys quick enough no on that. Like, we already have a top receiver, and we can't be paying a guy a ton of money to be number 2 receiver. Like, that's what he would be. Let's be honest. DK Metcalf, great player, top 15, top 20 receiver in the league. I don't know where you want to put him exactly, but probably in that kind of ballpark. But Nabers is a better receiver right now. Yeah. So you're going to put him as a number 2. Now, he's got a $31.87 million cap hit for the Seahawks right now in 2025, as it stands. He's got 1 year remaining on a 3-year, $72 million contract. So I'm going to tell you right now, guys, behind the scenes what's going on. I don't need a crystal ball. I don't need an inside source. They're not going to pay him a $31.87 million cap hit. And I'm not saying pay him like they're going to hand through $1 million. Obviously, his salary is different this year, but that's going to be the cap hit. They're not going to pay him that, point blank. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to rework a new deal. And that's probably what they've been doing behind the scenes. And they probably can't come up with anything that both sides agree to. And that's what's killing it.
Yeah. I mean, let's be real. Before we even think about because would I like DK Metcalf on the Giants? Hell yeah. You have 2 dynamic receivers. You're going to pay this guy a lot of money. But what for? When we're probably we're sitting at last place in a division, maybe being at the Cowboys. Maybe they're finally terrible this year.
They're terrible every year, but it's a whole separate issue.
Yeah,
it's the general statement, not even the record thing.
Pretty much. But are we Super Bowl contenders? Were we planning on the playoffs?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to pay this guy when we have a bigger hole to fill in the quarterback position.
But it's also if he's getting paid right now, and we can do the math real quick, it's not that difficult. He's making $24 million a year. 3 years, $72 million. And he got that 2 years ago. I mean, somebody's going to think he's probably worth $30 million. I am not paying $30 million a year to a number 2.
Yeah.
Now, here's the interesting thing, and it wasn't the topic we're going to have here, but we'll dive into a little bit here. Tyler Lockett. If we lose out on Darius Slayton, I would take Tyler Lockett in a heartbeat. I think he is a professional in the positive way. Like, he is a pros pro kind of receiver. He's a
Except
guy
that
he's going to be 33 in the season, so you're going to get him for a couple of years, and that's it. Like, let's be honest, he's going to be in the downswing here. And I know some people will say he's in the downswing already when he had 600 yards receiving, but he only had 600 yards receiving because of the fact that he was basically option number 3, because he had DK Metcalf, we talked about there, basically 1,000 yards in 12 games. But then you also had Jackson Smith-Njigba, who came on this year and went ahead and basically just proved people like us right when we said he was going to be a freaking beast, and he had 1,100 yards. There's only 70 yards to go around.
Yeah.
And, we could look up and compare as far as, hey, this is what he did this game and that game to see as far as what happened with the games that, DK Metcalf missed. But if you're telling me as a number 3, you got 600 yards still, it's not a bad season. There's still something left in the tank. And if you can get a guy like that for, let's say, 2 years, $20 million, or 2 years, $24 million, I don't think that that's a bad idea.
No. And then what you do is you also take a veteran receiver who's had a pretty good career on a team that's won way more than they lost, to bring in as a mentor to some younger guys that we have.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Like, I feel like this team, and I'll address this, Jake, as you put it in there. Why don't we ever go for the top guys? You desire the scrap heaps, Lockett. Here's the thing. We don't have leaders in the locker room right now. We flat out don't. We have gotten rid of so many of them, it's not even funny. We got rid of the guys who were the vocal leaders in that locker room, except for Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns. Darius Slayton is another one that we may lose.
I was going to say.
So I would go ahead and take a guy who can be a guy to try to, we talked about before with the quarterback situation, somebody who can help try to change the culture. And not everybody has to be the 25-year-old shiny new toy. Sometimes you get a guy, the savvy veteran, to come in for a couple of years, almost be like an assistant coach and somebody to help change this culture. It happens on every single roster. You bring in guys who are used to winning. And say what you want about the Seahawks. I'm not saying they're perennial Super Bowl contenders, but that is a team that consistently outperforms the Giants.
Yeah, I mean,
like it is.
They've been borderline playoff team for a long time, even without Sneaky Pete. I mean, Sneaky Pete, love the guy, but one of the best coaches in modern era.
He says it's like buying a sports car with 100,000 miles on it. You know what, though? If it's a quality sports car, it might go 150, 200.
Yeah.
Not every purchase has to be a long-term purchase.
You're just taking it out for one last ride. You're not looking to get this guy. Listen, you buy a brand new Ferrari, you spend $250,000. You buy one with 100,000 miles, you get it for a lot cheaper.
He says you can say that about everybody, but here's the difference. You're not necessarily seeing a downswing on him yet. Again, 600 yards last year, doesn't people look at that, but again, he was a third option. And that's why I'm looking at it's not on the downside. 900 yards the year before, 1,000 the year before that, 11,000, 1,000, 900. He's been consistent in the role he has since 2018. So, like I said, this is a guy that I feel like you bring him in for a couple of years. He's a good mentor for Nabers. Maybe he even teaches Hyatt how to be a wide receiver. Who knows?
Yeah. And Wandell.
I mean, and you need a vet. You can't just keep getting young guy after young guy after young guy. That's what we keep doing.
Yeah.
But you also can't sit there and go ahead and build up a roster with a bunch of 35-year-olds either. I'm not trying to go that route. But you got to sprinkle in some vets. Jihad Ward is a classic example. I feel like you had a situation where he came in and he became a vocal leader right off the bat. Jihad Ward is an older guy. He was like 29, 30 when we got him. Wasn't even a starter. need some savvy veterans. You need some guys who can change that culture. The Giants need a culture change at not just the front office. They need it in the locker room.
Listen, we got rid of Shep, who was our savvy vet, right?
Yep.
Right now, Slane's our savvy vet, and he has not seen, a winning season in how long?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like you take a guy like Lockett, who's had a winning season most of his career, if not all, with good leadership, you bring him in, helps these guys out.
Yeah. Like I said, I just feel like do it. Change the culture. Get the young guys in there. Get the guys that teach them. So
if you like that clip, then you will love the full episodes too. Find us on your favorite podcast app and look for us on all your favorite social media platforms.
Thanks so much.
Please, I'm begging you. Please subscribe.